All right, sweetie, off you go. The floor is yours.
Okay. Um, so hi everyone. Thank you guys for joining and having me here today. I'm really honored to be here. I'm really excited. So yeah, my name is Ama. I'm 20 years old and I'm from London. I'm a first year student and I'm currently studying modern and medieval languages at Cambridge, which is a fancy way of saying languages. So yeah, and I'm studying Spanish and German. Those are my two main languages. Um, and yeah, a little bit about me. I am a photographer and I like to write as well. And then just anything that gets me creative and allows me to tap into my creativity, I'll be there. That's my thing. So yeah, when approached about speaking with you all, I honestly had no idea about what I wanted to talk about. However, given the current global climate with the pandemic, I thought about my own recent experiences and the lessons I've learned from it, and one of which has been learning to embrace myself in what has been arguably one of the most, if not the most difficult period of my life. Many of us have really suffered because of the pandemic in various ways, particularly from the loss of loved ones. It seems as though for the past year and a half, the entire international community has just been shrouded in this dark cloud of pain, grief, anxiety, and uncertainty of what is to follow. And our way of life, the way that we live, has been very suddenly and drastically changed and uprooted. And we found ourselves for the first time in a very, very long time pressing pause on fast-paced, high-stress, demanding routines. So, like many other cities around the globe, London was a ghost town. The streets were completely bare and completely naked. The city was just muted in the absence of its people. And all my life, I've had the privilege of living in London. And I've never seen it like this before. And it feels almost like something out of a dystopian novel. So there we all were, scared of what the future looked like, stuck inside of our homes, stuck with ourselves, and now forced to confront who we were on a very personal and intimate level. For me, having had so many personal battles to fight over the last couple of years, whether they were academic, mental, spiritual, and with personal and familial relationships, being forced to confront myself whilst being in lockdown was terrifying and in itself very isolating. To set the scene, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, but yeah, to set the scene, when the first lockdown began, I had just emerged barely unscathed from 2019, another defining year of my life. What the pandemic offered me, I believe, what it offered all of us, was a moment of introspection. I had the chance to, whether or not I liked it, to truly look within and learn more about my present self. So in 2018, 2019, I was in my final year of secondary school and I had a lot of responsibilities. I was a member of my school's head girl team, a role that as a young Black woman attending a predominantly white private school was incredibly valuable to me. I was in the process of handing over our student-led magazine, which my friends and I had created 4 years before. We were handing that over to a new team. I was running POCSOC, which is a society I created with a friend in order to create a safe space for students of color. And I was balancing academics alongside making university applications, the most important of which was my application to my dream university, Cambridge. There was a lot of pressure and I was fighting a silent battle with my mental health, which I never opened up about. So I worked tirelessly on my application to Cambridge, determined to make it. There were many late nights poring over my personal statement and essays. And from the moment I received my interview offer, I did at least 2 mock interviews a week, and my dad even paid for a whole day, 2 days before the interview, just to have one-to-one guidance in preparation for the interview. Nothing ever stopped whilst I was doing all of this. I never had a moment to myself when I thought I needed it most, like I do now and I've had since lockdown. My dad and I traveled to Cambridge the day before the interview, and I remember he prayed with me before I went to bed. Our family had been through a lot, and in that moment, to be sat in a room at the university taking in and talking about everything that we had been through, and to be able to get to this point was so overwhelming that he even cried. And my dad doesn't cry. So it was a really beautiful and powerful moment. He was there for me the whole day of my interview and lifted me up when I thought that my first interview hadn't gone so well. Receiving my first offer from Cambridge was a culmination of everything that my parents had worked for, sacrificed, everything that they had invested in me since they came to this country. And it was all just bearing fruit. I will never forget the feeling of getting that offer. I will also never forget the feeling when I didn't get the grades. It felt like all of what I've just mentioned now had suddenly fallen apart. During my exams, I'd become so burnt out that I felt extremely ill with the virus, but still decided to sit my exams, which was not my brightest moment, if I'm being honest. And the letters AAC, which were my grades, crushed all the dreams that I had. And I was presented with this failure of a goal. I'll come back to failure as well in just a bit. The following days after results day, the day I got my results, were absolute hell. There was conflict between my parents and I about what to do. Should I go to another university that had offered me a place and move on, or should I chase my dream and chase what I'd always wanted? Still facing the burn of disappointment, I knew that I would never really be happy, never be satisfied with myself if I wasn't where I wanted to be, or at least if I didn't give myself that opportunity to have another shot. So I decided to take a gap year and reapply to Cambridge to give myself another chance. It was really hard. At that moment in time, apart from helping around the house like normal, all I had to do was focus on 2 subjects that I was going to resit. My reapplication and my part-time job, which was working at a nursery. That was all. A few changes here and there, but it was more or less the same thing as my last year of school. That's kind of where I was wrong. I now didn't have all the extracurricular responsibilities that I had before, which had kept me preoccupied and stopped me from really confronting my mental health, who I was and who I wanted to be. And so I had to fight. I had to fight really hard for what I wanted and fight to be a better me when I came out of the other side. I received a second offer from Cambridge, which felt like things were slowly coming full circle. The pandemic then hit the UK really hard. Not only did I fall out of work, but exams were also cancelled in the UK, which put me in a really difficult position. My whole structure was falling apart, and everything that I built in a really difficult year was just crumbling. At the same time, as I was deciding how I was going to reach my goals with all these changes, the murder of a Black man in the US called George Floyd at the hands of a police officer was broadcasted all over the world and rocked our communities. I have been really fortunate to have parents who put me through private education and the private education system in the UK. Many with African parents will know that education is something of utmost importance to them. My late grandfather's favorite quote is, "The pen is mightier than the sword." However, as a young Black woman, the journey from age 4 to 18 has never been easy. My experiences of racism, discrimination, and personal conflict in my venture to better understand who I was in an institution which often had ways of telling me that I didn't exactly fit, have made me into the person that I am today. I never shied away from using my voice to speak out when I wanted to, even though I was often drowned out and even ignored. To this day, I use the platforms that I have to speak out about racism and inequality, especially when I live in a country that would rather not confront the reality of its socio-political climate with regards to race. I'm not only a woman, but I'm a Black woman. So sometimes I feel like it's a continuous battle, not only to be seen, but also just to be acknowledged. George Floyd's murder sparked worldwide conversations about race and the movement Black Lives Matter. Summer of 2020 was mentally and emotionally tasking, as I had to sit there and either debate or listen to white people debate whether or not my life as a Black woman mattered, because that is truly what the conversations were about, whether or not we realized that, or even if they appeared to be that way. At times, I enjoyed intellectually stimulating discussions with people as we tried to decipher and understand the world that we lived in. But I also received many apologies from people I had been to school with, expressing their concern over their previous behavior towards me. It was a bitter pill to swallow, and it was not even the worst of it. A month later, I would find out that yet again, I would miss out on the Cambridge after not having been able to sit the exams. So there I was, reminded yet again of how my life was a constant battle after battle after battle, with little time to really pick myself up. And as I reflected one day on what had happened in the past year, I decided to write down my goals. I found that I couldn't write anything. I was completely lost on what I wanted. I didn't even know who I was. Yes, I had seen different sides to myself, different sides to my strength through every roadblock that I had faced and that I had encountered. But I didn't seem to wholeheartedly know what I wanted. For the first time in my life, I was reflecting on the person that I was, and I had nothing to say. It was in this time that I learned the second step in the process of embracing who you are. So the first is confronting yourself. And in confronting yourself, that's questioning who it is you are, who you want to be. You also need to think about the people around you. Who makes you who you are? Who helps you reach your goals? In embracing yourself, it is incredibly important to have a support system. For me, it's my family and my friends, mainly my family. Without my family, I doubt that I would have gotten through a lot of struggles in my life. Without my family, I doubt I would have had the strength to fight for my place at Cambridge for a second time. They are a constant in my life that acts almost like a trampoline. When I'm coming down, they push me right back up. And I look to my parents and I look at their lives and everything that they have put into raising us into the people, me and my brothers, into the people that we are, and the path that they have set for us and are continuing to set for us. Though we clash many times, I know that my parents would not have pushed me as much as they did had they not believed in me. My parents see the potential in me every single time, even when I myself can't. And in those moments when I feel lost, I never understand why they push me. But the minute I engage with their encouragement, I work with them, I see what they see, and I can actually embrace who I am. The people around us, the people that we keep around us, have an incredible effect on who we are, both good and bad. But it is about being honest with yourself and knowing who will truly push us to be better, to be greater. For every negative thing that you see in yourself, Somebody who loves you will find 10 things that they see. You deserve to be embraced, not just by yourself, but by people who will show you how much they love you and will help you love and want more for yourself. The most difficult lesson for me that I have learned in coming to be proud of who I am is learning to accept and welcome failure. All my life, I have always wanted to be perfect. Like I said before, being in a world which doesn't always see you, we have to be exceptional to be heard. So when I fail, it is painful because I not only know that I can do better, but that I need to be better. But it's a process, it's something that I'm really trying to unlearn. The greatest opportunities come from your failures. I don't really like to use the word failure because to me, it sounds very finite and frankly quite soul crushing. And that might be because of my life experiences with failing. I'm sure you guys already know this, but it's just to remind you that you are not defined by your failures or by when things don't go your way or the way that you had planned. You are defined by the way in which you pick yourself back up and you keep pushing. And that is not necessarily straight towards success. The fact that you are able to see beyond your current hardships and challenges to move forward, for me, is in itself commendable and is a success that you should be proud of. Whatever you might consider or label a failure is just an opportunity. It's an opportunity to prove to yourself and to others that you decide what the future holds for you. So embrace it and just use it to learn more about who you are and who you will be. The last thing that I would say about embracing yourself, I know I've said embrace a lot today, I apologize. But the last thing I would say is that understanding that everything is a work in progress. The journey of coming to love and accept yourself, much like anything else in life, is a process. The journey of coming to love yourself will have its ups and downs. But like I've mentioned before, it is up to you to appreciate every moment and use it to come back better and stronger. Never forget to take time out for yourself and focus on you. You are in control, even when you don't feel like it. So press that pause button if you need to. Don't wait for another pandemic. We have learned from this pandemic that the lives that we've lived and the lives that for some of us we're still living, the constant pressure and stress are just unsustainable for our mental health. So take time out to breathe, meditate, and refocus yourself because you are important. Everything is a work in progress to something and to someone great. So to round things up, in learning to embrace yourself in the most difficult of times, remember to confront yourself. Who are you in this present moment? And who do you want to be? Have a support system, people who will uplift you and love you, and welcome your failures and use them to grow. And also remember that everything is work in progress. Your journey is far from over. So thank you so much for listening and to me, Travel On. And I hope that you could take at least one thing from what I've said today, if anything at all. So yeah.
Oh my God. Bravo. I can't believe my little girl is all grown up. Oh, thank you so much, Ama. Thank you so very much. I wish I was this eloquent and enlightened when I was 20 years old. Nothing like that. All right, you guys. I'm gonna open out the floor. So yeah, everyone, if you have any questions for Ama, we can ask.
I do. I have a few actually. Hello, Ama. Liza here.
Hi.
Let me pull on my speakers, my headset. Hold on. Okay, I have a few questions, as I said, and I would like to start by the bio you sent us. You know, when you say that you say that you are a Londoner, but then you say that you are an immigrant. And I think this is very interesting because although you were born and raised in England, London, I mean, in one of the centers of the world, you still call yourself immigrant. Why is that so?
Yeah, this is a question about identity that I'm always, every day changes, my answer changes. I think I've had to learn to embrace having an immigrant background, and also the fact that I am British, whether or not I like it. I am British, I was born here, it's my legal right. And I think the reason that sometimes I have difficulty to decide which one, or to even to say specifically that I am English, which is a fact, is because I have grown up in a world which, especially in this country, which you will always know that you're an outsider. You'll always be told, whether it's by people's actions or if people want to actually tell you, you'll always be told that you don't quite belong. So I've always struggled with that. And I think that the way that I was educated, the system I was educated in, has a lot to do with that. I also think that my upbringing has a lot to do with it. So I was born and raised in London, but my first language is not English. It's actually Chi, because my parents are Ghanaian, and that was what my parents spoke with me when I was young. I didn't start speaking English until I was 4 years old and I started school. So I've known that culture for a very long time. My parents never changed the way they raised me. Just because we were in the UK, I had a very much a typical African upbringing with a little few modifications. So it's such a huge part of me that sometimes I do feel that if I say explicitly, I am British or I am English, I feel like sometimes people might neglect or forget the fact that, no, I do have an immigrant background, which means so much to me, and is really important to the person I am.
Wow, congratulations. I asked that because here in Brazil, we do not see that, you know, me being a Black woman here in Brazil, I mean, I don't know where I come from, you know, this is something that was denied to me and the, you know, the previous generations here in Brazil. It was completely erased, illiterated, you know, from us. And seeing you so young, because you, I mean, I'm not going to say how much older I am from you, but yes, so this is not from, this is something completely different to my generation, because my generation would want to get as much further as we could, you know, from these. And now it's totally different. We try to, like, I don't even know which word to say, because it's something that we need to rediscover. You know, we needed to learn. And it's, wow, congratulations for having your identity, you know, so very clear for you as young as you are.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to actually mention as well, so I'm studying Spanish at uni, and I have a year abroad project in my third year, and I want to travel to Colombia and somewhere in Central and Latin America, specifically because of what you just mentioned. I have a huge interest in Afro-Latinos and identity, especially for descendants of Africans in the Americas, because I think that it's such an interesting topic. Brazil, like you said, has a huge Afro-Latino population, and there are so many stories of people being in denial of the African or the Black ancestry. And it's amazing how we, across the globe, we always struggle with this identity because of years and years of conditioning and socialization, which has informed the way that we view different groups of people. So yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because it's something that I want to work on and research into a bit more as well.
Come here. Yeah. Come over.
Well,
I would love to.
Come and see me.
I'm sorry, but I still have a couple of questions. So let me get it out of the way. So when
get off your system. Come on.
Another thing that you said, I mean, because I'm I'm really glad to hear what you just said, because another thing that you said is that you didn't shy away from people's comments and always constant reminders that you were not white and that you were in a white dominant environment, but you were still there because you pushed yourself through there. So you earned the position. And what usually happens, I'm talking now from my own experience, because I didn't see myself when I was at school, when I was at university, I didn't see color to me, to my identity, I didn't see myself as a person of color, although I was like one of the 2 or 3 people. I always studied in private institutions here in Brazil. So, but I was always so grateful for being there and so grateful for those people accepting me, although it was no scholarships. My parents were paying for that, big money. And I didn't see myself the way you see yourself. So how do you do that? And what, of course, you just said, because it was your upbringing that your parents taught you to do so. And once again, I see how much difference we have in cultures, because my parents are also Black. I come from a Black country. I had one of my grandparents, he was set free from slavery, great-grandparents. So it's not distant in my family, you see. But I didn't have this view. I have my grandmother, my mom's mother, she used to hate Black people. She died being a Black woman, being born to recently set free men. She used to hate Black people, you see?
Yeah, it's really difficult because, so for me personally, I don't have a history of slavery, well, as far as I know, slavery in my family. And so the first thing is that I think that I'm very privileged in that sense, that I have a direct link back home to Ghana, and I know my family, and we're very firm in the people that we are, especially because my parents are both Ashantis, which is the biggest tribe in Ghana, and depending on who you ask, we're a very proud people. So my parents were always very specific and made it very clear about who I was. There was never any question or doubt about that. I had a lot of instances when I was in primary school. There was a time when, boys would chase me around the playground, like trying to eat me because I looked like chocolate, and a whole bunch of other things. And my parents would always say, no, well, you're better than that, and you have to ignore them, and just ignore them. And I used to think that my parents were neglecting what I was going through, but I recently found a letter that my dad had written to the headmistress. It was very, very straightforward about the incident, and it was dealt with. So for me, my parents have just always reminded us of our background and who we were. There was never any shying away from the fact that we are different to a lot of the kids that we go to school with. My dad specifically made it clear to me when I started secondary school. He said, we don't come from money. We don't have a lot of money. We're building something now, and that starts with you guys. We're not like a lot of your white counterparts who, if they don't do well in school, they can go to their families and they can go do the family business. It's like, you don't have that option, so you have to work hard. So I always knew, and I always respected that. So yeah, I would say that I'm very privileged in being able to be proud and embrace myself, but it's not something that I've suddenly, I've had all my life. There have definitely been ups and downs. There have been times when I've been embarrassed of my culture and embarrassed of who I am, because it's little things that will affect you as a child. And when your brain is so young, you're still learning. If a boy makes a list of all the girls in the year group that he likes and you're at the bottom, it immediately clicks in your head. Small things like that will affect you, and you go through certain things. But another thing that has helped me as well as I've grown is and creating a safe space or creating communities for especially women of color to come and to talk about these things. Because even if you don't initially, or you're not able to yet fully identify with being a person of color, or not being white, when you surround yourself with other people who are, then you start to realize that a lot of the things that you have been through in life, a lot of your experiences actually are very similar. And you will be surprised, because you go through life thinking that it's normal, thinking that maybe it's just me. But then you enter a space with people who are just like you, who look just like you, and suddenly that dynamic changes. So creating a society when I was in year 12 of secondary school with my friend, which allowed other Black students and other students of color to come together, was really something that changed, I would say changed my life. A girl who was my mate came to me and she said, I was embarrassed to come to the society because I've always been ashamed of who I am. I've always been ashamed of myself. She said, when I was younger, and not even like maybe a couple of years ago, she said, I once went into the shower and I tried to scrub my skin so hard to like get the color off. And she said, I felt so embarrassed to come here today because I didn't think I would, I've never been proud of being who I am. So why should I be in this space? And I said to her, we've all gone through that. We've all experienced that. And this space is about coming together. It's not necessarily to talk about race or to talk about experiences. It's just to be happy and to have somewhere where you're comfortable and you're loved and people know who you are. So I think that has really helped me. And as I've grown, having more Black friends and having a diverse set of friends has helped broaden my view of the world and my understanding of things as well.
Thank you.
You done with your questions, Lazy?
I do, but I'll just be quiet for a moment.
Anybody? Go on, Monica.
Can I ask a question? First of all, thank you, Ama, for being here and for telling your story.
Thank you.
It's so inspiring to hear from you. I was thinking, first of all, about what you and Lais were discussing about being from Ghana, but being British, but also identifying yourself as an immigrant from Ghana. And I was remembering the book of, I will remember her name. She's a researcher in Germany, and she writes, her researchers are about Black women experiences in the United States and Germany. And there is a complaint with this very common among those Black women about always being asked, where are you from? As if they didn't believe those places where they live. So your words and explanations made me think about that. Dada Quilomba. I'm sure you heard something about her. She's a psychologist and also an artist. But this is not my question. I want to know a bit more about part of your bio, which is in my Instagram, the part about your project of providing menstrual objects for young women. I think this is so interesting, and this is my area, human rights. I work with these issues too. So please, if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Of course. So two of my close friends founded an organization called PeriodLink, which is an NGO designed to help young women learn more about menstrual health and menstrual hygiene and sexual health, by also providing them the products that they needed. And last year during the pandemic, actually, they asked me if I wanted to join. And it was something I was quite nervous about because I'd never done anything like that before, but I thought, I'm going to take it on, I'm going to do it. And it's been an incredible experience so far. It's been amazing because although our main goal is to help women and to help women stay in education by focusing as well on their bodily health, we also recognize the importance of women as the pillar of communities, how important women are to, whether it's a small, very local community and wider society in general. So we recently worked with a environmental organization in Ghana where we wanted, so we're working in a village, very remote, far from the city. And we created a business plan, a setup for the women in the community to make reusable pads. And with the money that they gained from that, all the money went straight to the women and to the community. We also set a GoFundMe page up so that they could create boreholes to get water during the dry seasons to the community. So it wasn't just about, focusing on menstrual health and women and women alone. It was recognizing for us that women are the pillar of the societies. They keep the societies together. They keep the people together. But they also need to look after themselves. If there's no water, then women can't take care of themselves when it's that time of the month. So yeah, working with PeriodLink has been incredible because it's definitely made me more aware about myself as a woman. I have my own issues with my period, have very, a difficult time during the time of the month. And so it was something that I was passionate about and something that, especially having a mum who's a midwife, I knew that I had to do because I think that it is incredibly important when we can resolve the issues that are caused from girls missing school because they don't have the right sanitary products and materials, or because they're too embarrassed to go to school because of their period. By recognizing all of that and saying we're going to focus on that so we can keep girls in education and give them a better chance and better opportunities in life. Yeah, it was really, really important to me as well.
Thank you.
Wow, so good. Did you do this with people from school? How did you met these people on the internet and then you went from there, or it's like people that you already knew?
How do I explain it? So one of the girls, my friend Peace, I actually met her when I was applying for Cambridge. We met at an open day and we just became really good friends. She's half Ghanaian, half Togolese. And so we just stayed in contact. And then I don't know, social media works very weirdly these days. We just like connected with each other's mutual friends. And then her friend Marina, who we all say is like just a career activist. Any cause against the government, yep, she's there. She will do a hunger strike. She will sit outside Parliament if she has to. She messaged me and said, would you like to join? And I said yes. So yeah, that's another thing as well. Networking has changed, and the way we network and connect with people has really transformed. And so I've met so many people because of it, and I've learned so many things. Things like how to reach out to news outlets and publications and sending out mission reports and statements, something I would never have learned, I don't know, down in any career that I want to do in the future. So it's been a fantastic experience.
Awesome. And I want to ask you, like, oh my God, I have so many questions, but I think I'm focusing on the one that I thought about it now. Right. So like London is always buzzing, and especially like where you live. So happening, everything is going on. And now pandemic hits, boom. Everyone's indoors, no one's going out. people not, socializing anymore and things like this. So that's what we know. It's hard, people dying, da, da, da. This is like okay. Well, it's not okay, but it's what we know already. It's happening all over the world. So what I want to ask is like, how do you see the results of the pandemic in as far as like England goes? Like, do you think there will be lots of positive that will come out of it? Like you just mentioned now about the social networking and creating these new networks and things like this. Because I think, and you said this as well when you were telling about your experience, like it's a good time for reflection, to think about things and look, and this introspection when you look inside and you're like, okay, so this is not working, let me adjust. So I do like, personally, I think that there will be a massive positive side to the pandemic, but I want you to hear your opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard because living in England, we also have to deal with, I don't want to get too political, but we have to deal with a government who has a very interesting way of going about things. I will just put it that way. So every time that, for me, I feel like we have an opportunity to make a change and to make a difference, classic example is Brexit. They always find a way of doing the complete opposite. So I think that it's going to take a lot of reflection and a lot of people being really honest with themselves for real change to happen. There have been a lot of articles recently about, I don't know if any of you guys have been there or know about Canary Wharf, which is like the center of business and commerce in London, right? And because of the pandemic, nobody's going into offices, nobody's traveling to work anymore, and the whole place has completely shut down. And it's throwing everyone into a frenzy because this is where all the money gets made, and people benefit from people, piling up in buildings every day. So one of the reflections that I hope we can take out of this and changes we can make at the end is, having a more flexible work-life balance. If there is no need for someone to come to work and sit in front of their computer for X amount of hours a day, let them work from home, especially if they have kids. I mean, I have this discussion all the time with my dad about especially as a woman, balancing career and family life, and it's something that I have to think about very, very carefully with the career that I want to go into. But if you then change the way in which we allow people to work, having more control over their hours and their work setup, you can have women working from home. And then if they need to go and pick their child up from the nursery or from school, they can rush out and do that. And when dad comes home, then things are sorted out and balanced that way. So that is, for me, one of the things that I really, really hope people look at and say, hey, we need to re-examine the way we work, we go into work. I mean, if any of you have experienced rush hour in London, it's absolutely insane. The tube is packed, everyone is stacked on top of each other. I'm a short person, so I'm always stuck under some guy's sweaty armpit. It's not in any
Tube
way.
is the worst. Don't.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It was funny because when I went to London, I was like, in Sao Paulo, in Rio, trains are full. That's a fact. But I'm like, this doesn't happen in London. Like, no, we have seats with air conditioning and everything. Yeah, no, we don't. And it's the worst because
terrible.
people are not the most hygienic. So yeah, it stinks to high heaven in summer. It's the worst thing in the world for you to use the underground, right?
Yeah, it's horrible. But I hope things change, and I hope that we can, do better. Another positive as well is that our carbon footprint has reduced, and with respect to global warming and the environment, things have been a lot better because everybody has stopped traveling and going to work as much as we used to, and that's already having an impact. So if people really, really, really focus and say, what do we want for our world and for our future, I think that there could be a lot of positive changes that have come out of the pandemic, which has forced us to really pause and be grateful for, you know, the small things in life.
Awesome. Everyone's so shy today. Come on, guys. No more questions. All right, I'll ask
I
another
do.
one.
I do.
Oh, okay, go.
Yeah. My other question is about these application process for the university. So it's very interesting because it's, you know, it's a whole different rolê, as we say here in Brazil. You know, it's a whole different process. It doesn't work like this. So even though you, like, let's say here we would say that we passed the exam to enter that specific university. You know, we have the specific points that we can apply for some universities, but there, even though you are accepted, you still have like an interview. How does that work?
Yeah, so let me have a think. Okay, so in the UK, the only universities where you will have an interview are Oxbridge, so Oxford and Cambridge, which are the two top and oldest universities in the UK. And then medical students will have interviews. There are some other courses. For example, my brother is doing design engineering. He had to do interviews for all his unis. So there are other few courses where you'll need an interview, but mostly medics and people who are applying to Oxford or Cambridge, they will do an interview. So as a UK student, I only know the process as a UK national. What we have to do is when you are 17, 18, you'll sit exams. You, depending on the school that you go to, there are different types of exams, like IB, which is the International Baccalaureate, and then A-levels, which is the UK standard exam that everybody takes. They've changed it recently, but you only do 3 A-levels in whatever subjects that you think that you're going to need for university. A lot of universities will have requirements for what subjects you need to do. So for example, for Cambridge, it's not a requirement that you study 2 languages at A-level, but at least at GCSE, which is another exam that you take at 16, you should have studied 2 A-levels. So yeah, A-level, you sit 3 subjects. And when you get into your second year of A-level and you're applying to universities, you let the universities know which subjects you're doing, and your teachers will give you a predicted grade. So a grade they think that you will get in the real exams. And based off of that, you also have to submit a personal statement, which is like just over 1,000 words about why you want to study your degree. You submit that, and then your teachers will also submit a reference. So their opinion of you and why you would be good for the course and all of that stuff. So from there, once that's all submitted with other universities, they will just make their judgment based on the information they've got. They will also have your GCSE grades, the exams that you take at 16, and they will make their offer. So when they give you an offer, they will say, hi, we would like to offer you a place at Durham University. The grades that we want you to get are, for example, A star, A. That's in our grading system, the highest grade is an A star, then an A, then a B, then a C, and so on. And so if in the final exams that you take in June, you get A star, AA or higher, then you get your place. If you don't get the grades, then you won't get the place. So the difference with Cambridge is that you submit all of that normal stuff, so your personal statement, your reference from your teacher, your GCSE grades, and your predicted grades. Then they will come to you and say, okay, you've applied to our university. Here are all the forms you need to fill out for the rest of the application process. So for languages, I had to submit 2 essays, 2 in Spanish and 2 in German. I had to submit those. I also had to do a mini test at the interview where they asked me a question, and I did one essay in English and another essay I chose to do it in Spanish. And that was an hour and a half in the interview. And if you get an offer, if after looking at all of that, they say, okay, we'd like to interview you, and you travel to Cambridge on the day, and you will have 2 interviews. So for language interviews, they usually are about 40 minutes, and half an hour is just them asking you questions, ask about your personal statement, ask about books. They will give you a text to prepare before your interview. So I think last year I had a Greek poem, but that was translated into German. You're not allowed to use a dictionary or anything, you just have to go for it. And then when you come into the interview, they say, okay, talk to me about the text. And you just have to, even if you didn't understand it, you have to find a way to say whatever about the text. And then you talk about yourself for a bit. And then the last 10 minutes of the interview, they will speak to you in the language. And then after that, they say, do you have any questions for us? I always like to research the person that's interviewing me and say, oh, I read your book on this. What's your thoughts on that? And just try and sweeten them up a little bit. And then once those 2 interviews are done, you've done the exam, that's done for the day. A month later, they let you know whether or not you have an offer. And if you do have an offer, they say, for languages, we want you to get A star AA in these subjects. And if you do the exams and you meet the grades, then you can start uni. But it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Let me just get something right here. So after all of this, they give you like a subject to study, and you have to go to university, take the classes, and only after that, if you succeed, then you start for real.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. You really wanted to get into Cambridge.
Yes. Yeah. I put
Wow.
myself through a lot of work. It means so much to me. I mean, even being there now, it's really difficult. There is a lot of work. The first term, which was in October, was, I think, the hardest time of my entire life. I've never had so much like work in 1 week. It was so crazy. I think I was handing in maybe 3 essays every week, 3 2,000-word essays every week, and having to read. I mean, there was a day I had to read like a 300-page book in 2 days, and then write an essay and then do the extra reading on top. It's a lot of work. So when people say that it's important, that when people say that they value people who went to Cambridge or to Oxford, I understand, because you have a lot of pressure. And so when you get into the working environment, hopefully you're able to deal with it and deal with the workload.
Yeah, but I mean, as soon as you don't even have to finish your graduation, people will be like chasing you to hire you. With all of this pressure and all of this work you put yourself before getting into it, I mean, this kind of person is definitely the kind of employee, the kind of associate I want to work with.
Yeah, hopefully people will be chasing me. That's the idea. I want to go into law, so I have to do another 2 years conversion. But if you're really good, a law firm will pay for your tuition fee. So that's what we're aiming for, so that I don't have as much debt when I'm older. Yeah.
Wow. So after you finish in languages, you're doing Spanish and German, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna take 2 years. You just need 2 more years for law.
Yeah. So
that's
in this country, we have a conversion course program. It's a 1-year course. You study law in 1 year. In compared, it's very intense. But then you also prepare to take your bar exam as well, to qualify to be a lawyer. And if you want to practice, you can practice. If you don't, it's up to you. I would like to practice for a little bit, and then hopefully kind of take my skills somewhere else.
Last question, I promise. So let's say that you wanted to take law since the beginning. How much would you have to study? I mean, in terms of years, how many years?
Yeah, so if you want to do a straight law degree, so immediately after high school, I think it's a 3-year degree.
Interesting. Yeah. Here in Brazil, it's at least a 5 if you
really?
manage to finish. Yeah, I mean, you see, that's ridiculous. You know, our educational system, because we take like 3, 4. I mean, 3 it's okay, but 4, 5 years. You know, we're studying like so many generic things when you should have go straight to the point. I mean, I have a bachelor degree in administration, but you know, 1.5 years, I would say it's just, you know, walking around, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think it really, in this country, it really depends. Medical students have the longest degrees. It's 6 years. My best friend is doing medicine and she's nowhere near finishing. And then it depends really. I mean, my languages degree is 4 years. But I always say it's 3 years because one of my years I'm going to be spending time in, well, I would like to go to Latin America and then also to Germany. So it's not too bad. It's a nice, I think my degree is the best degree.
You're in languages, girl. I would say you're in the best way.
Exactly.
Mas
So,
employer ama to be a German teacher.
girl, we have to establish a partnership right now, and she's a student, because 1 year on, she wouldn't even want to look at us. You say, what? I'm a Cambridge graduated.
You scum. Don't care for you. Monica, did you have a question?
Sorry.
I was just curious to know about the interview. What can, when all those gentlemen and ladies ask you if you have question, what kind of question you are supposed to ask? What kind of question? Let me say something. Here in Brazil, when you are applying for a job, especially for a job, when they ask you, do you have any question for us? You are always thinking, what kind of question can I ask to look smart and and to be hired to those people. So I'm really curious about what kind of question do they want to listen to.
Yeah, that's a good question. Every time I'm mentoring people for interviews, they ask me the same thing, and I always say to people, for university, for Cambridge, you will know who your interviewer is going to be. So the first thing I do is I look them up. If they've got a book, I'll read the book and I will find something interesting in the book and talk about it. If they have a podcast or they've done an interview, I listen to the interview, I read a bit about them. I basically just do my research on the interviewer. And I find at least 2 questions about what they are interested in to throw back at them, because it gives them an opportunity to talk about themselves, because who doesn't love to talk about themselves?
Right.
And you know, it also shows that you're interested in them and not just the place at the university. I remember my first round of interviews, for my German interview, it was my second one. I'd had a Spanish interview and I just didn't really get on with the lady, and I was so upset. And my dad was like, you've just got to give this one your all and just really go in there and, you know, just throw everything on the table. And we finished the interview. We were throwing a couple of jokes around, and I was like, so he said to me, do you have any questions? And I said, well, I was listening to your podcast about Middle High German and how you got into writing medieval literature. What is the challenges that you face when translating? He went on for 5 minutes about his work. And I just sat there and I just nodded my head and I said, yes, absolutely. You know, so I think that's been, and I couldn't do that the second time round because I had him again. And so we we just talked about the last interview, but it was one of the things that I took away was always know who's interviewing you and try and reach out to their, to their interests, because as human beings, sometimes we can be selfish. So try and poke their their button a little bit.
And you take it like into a personal level as well, right? So now it's not
Yeah.
like that relationship, like where they are interviewing you. It's now an exchange
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
information. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I know it's like time, but I really need to ask you about your trip to Ghana, because I know
Yeah.
like you went to Ghana, and you went to Ghana when you're growing up. I remember you guys going for
Yeah.
holidays and there, but there was this one trip that really changed things for you. So why did it change? And like, was it because of your age, your perception, or the things that you were going through when you were in England? And like how, why and how?
Yeah. So in 2017, I went to Ghana with one of my brothers. I had just finished my exams, my GCSEs, and it was just a nice like holiday to have before I got results. I hadn't been to Ghana, but by then I hadn't been to Ghana in a good maybe 5 or 6 years. It had been a long time. So I hadn't seen the country for myself. And through matured eyes, like, when I'd grown up for a really long time. And yeah, it changed. I don't want to say it changed my life, but it was really moving, because there is a perception of Africa, not just in the West, but in the world, in the global majority, about Africa being poor and underdeveloped. We use the term underdeveloped countries, or less LDCs, less developed countries. And I've always known that that's not the case, because it's my home. It's the place that I love the most. It's my refuge, and it's where I'm most comfortable. And there's so much more to it than just poverty. I know that for a fact. So to go and to see for myself how much it had developed since I last came was incredible. There were new buildings, there was a new airport, everything was just so new. And sometimes when we talk about the development of Africa, we talk about it with respect to modernity by the definition of the Western world. And I think that has been very damaging to the way in which we've been able to move forward, because we keep comparing ourselves to the Western world, countries that colonized us, when actually, we have our own culture, we have our own way of doing things, and it's important to do it at our pace. So that trip was so amazing to go and see that. There were obviously, a few negatives and things that I was like, hey, we need to improve on this. But overall, it was just so beautiful. I got to see my grandmothers again after a very long time. And it was also the first time I went to Cape Coast Castle, which is one of the slave ports in Ghana. And when I was younger, I'd never been. You're not very aware of these things. And as I've grown, I've learned a lot more. And the trip to Cape Coast really, that definitely changed my life. If you ever have a chance to go, I would definitely recommend it. It was eye-opening. Every time you think you know about slavery, you learn something else, and it just completely opens your eyes. And it was a beautiful trip, because we had an amazing tour guide who wasn't, trying to focus on the sad part and the bad parts. There's a door in the castle when you go, and it's called the door of no return. So when they were leading the slaves out of the dungeons, that's the door that they would go on to be loaded into the ships, because it's right by the sea, right by the port. So you go, and when you're on the tour, you go through this door, and then they talk a little bit about it. You see nowadays the locals fishing. and you can just see the ocean, and it just like goes on forever and ever and ever. And then when you turn back, they've now changed it so that on the outside it says the door of return. And it's that moment when it kind of hits you, like a lot of people who left through that door didn't even make it back. They could never return. Some of them never made the full journey to Europe and to the Americas. And so for their descendants coming back, a lot of Americans come to Ghana to reconnect with their roots, to come back and have that kind of spiritual return, through their descendants, is really, really powerful. So yeah, that was a trip that changed me. I wrote a poem about it, which is going to be published in a book soon. And so it was a really important trip for me to just see the country through mature eyes, older eyes. And then I went recently in 2019, and I took my best friend who is white, and we had an amazing time. And I was just so proud to be able to be like, this is my country, and show her around, and eat all the local foods and really enjoy ourselves. And even when I went then, yeah, just to show off, it was just amazing. So yeah.
Oh my God, the food, don't.
Amazing food.
Remember when we went to the African restaurant in São Paulo? And all of a sudden, I used to go for dinners, my friend's house used to cook African food. Rolê Otuo.
Yeah.
Best cooker on the planet.
I cooked African food with, I lived in London as well, and in 2 different times. And the last time, which was just for fun, just traveling around Europe and having fun with friends. And I really connected with this family from Angola. A girl, it was religiously every Monday night I would go and have dinner with them, and we would have dinner parties, every freaking week. And the dinner parties would go until 2 a.m. when we would dance, we would eat, we would cook. So, oh my God, I miss that so much. And then I would go back home, on foot, 2 a.m. And it was awesome.
Yeah,
those are the days.
Amazing.
Those are the days.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so very much, Ama. I don't want to take any more of your time.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. It's so good to catch up with you again and see how far you came. I'm so proud of you, girl. Makes me emotional.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming and supporting us. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Ama.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.